Hello, this is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? This is going to be a Victober wrap-up and a quick reading update. And I saw that Jennifer Brooks, is that right? Put out her Victober wrap-up, so I'm not too late, even though it's November 8th. So other people are wrapping up Victober as well. So I had a pretty good Victober. I am not a fast reader. I don't do a lot of volume of reading, but I did read Scenes from Clerical Lives by George Eliot. And I did that early in October due to having COVID. And I enjoyed that very, very much. I really enjoy her writing. I found it really interesting, and I just gobbled it up in a number of days. So that was that. That was on my Kindle. Then the three other books I was trying to, two of them, read that I planned to read for Victober was Mary Barton, which I was going to write a screenplay for. I abandoned that idea. It was a crazy idea. I'm way too busy and it would take way too much time. And I actually started that in September. I started listening to this on audio, but I was going very, very slowly because I would listen to a chapter and then I would try to write. So I only got to like chapter 5 before I abandoned ship. So then when October came along, I started listening to it in earnest on audio, and I finished it. It was read by Juliet Stevenson. It was excellent. This is my favorite Elizabeth Gaskell, even though I know it's her first novel. I loved it. It's, she wrote it when she was on bed rest after having a baby, and the baby died. And it is full of grappling with death. I mean, that's what it's about. And just grief and loss and what tragedy can do to you. It can destroy you. It can make you bitter. It can twist you, or it can make you stronger. It can make you kinder. It can make you, it can really raise you up and build your character. And there are just so many deep issues that she explores. And it's got, there's an interesting plot twist in it where you're really on the edge of your seat. Like, it starts out kind of slow. She introduces all the various characters to you, and then momentum starts to build. And then there's this sudden thing that happens where you're on the edge of your seat and you really see people's characters come out, especially Mary Barton. But then I had forgotten that there was this long wrap-up at the end. And Gaskell just wraps up every character. And even there's a character that gets sort of a new arc. It's a very Christian novel. It's about Christian forgiveness. It's about what happens to us after we die. It's about relationships between parents and children, mourning children, children mourning parents. Yeah, it's a profound novel. I really find it deeply satisfying, and I enjoyed it very, very much. So 5 stars on that one. And then I read The Prime Minister by Anthony Trollope. I gave this 4 stars. It's a, typical Anthony Trollope, and I love his very nuanced psychological study of his characters. Nobody's perfect. They have flaws, and they, sometimes their way of thinking really steers them wrong. And the plot is pretty complicated, not in an artificial way, but just there's a lot of things going on. And I really love his writing style and his sense of humor and his capacity to really explore in depth people's psychology. I love the character of Plantagenet Palliser. And here we meet him in Can You Forgive Her? He married Lady Glencora. And here we see how, in that one, we saw how heroic he could be. He's just a wonk. He just loves government and policy and economics and finance, and he's a wonk that way. But he doesn't have the diplomatic finesse you would need to hold together a coalition. And he's the prime minister here. He finally, after being involved in the government for many years, he's in Parliament. He he finally becomes the prime minister, but he's holding together this sort of unstable coalition. And he doesn't have the ability to do that. And the minute he gets prime minister, he is filled with self-doubt because he just does not feel he's the right man for it. Meanwhile, his wife is full of ambition for him. She's going to make up for what she sees as lacking in him and lack of his social skills. And so we see their marriage. It's such a good portrait of a marriage. It's not a marriage made in heaven, but it's a marriage that's made because of commitment and loyalty. And then we get another marriage going on that's just horrendous. And you just groan with how it just gets worse and worse. And so, yeah, it was a great story. Like I said before, there's anti-Semitism in here. And, he's, sometimes he's kind of in your face with it in his descriptions of, what a Jew would look like, But he's also a little bit nuanced. So, even the Jewish character, there's a little bit of humanity, and you sort of get into their brain and how they're thinking. So it's not as blatant as it could be. It's not as crass as it could be, but it's still there. And also, Trollope is just a classist. I really think he thinks the upper class are just, more superior. And it's just better. I don't know, I got that feeling from this one too. So in spite of that, I really enjoyed it. And I'm glad I'm reading the Palliser series. I have to say, so far, the Barchester series is more my cup of tea. But that's not to say I'm not really enjoying this series. Got one more to go, The Duke's Children, to be read November and December. And I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it with a couple of little caveats. So, and then my poet that I was going to read for Victober was Robert Browning. I tried to read him last year too, and I just got a few more. I read The Pied Piper of Hamelin. I read Porphyria's Lover. I'm not quite sure how to say that, Porphyria. A lot of these are hard to pronounce. He likes those words that really make you work your mouth trying to pronounce them. Where was the other one? How They Brought the Good News from Ghent to, I don't know how you say that, Aix? I don't know. So yeah, that's as far as I got. So that much. I might just make Browning my Victober poet. I'm just going to read some more next year. And I'm just going to keep going until I had my fill of Robert Browning. So, yeah, I think that's what I might do. So anyway, so that was my poet. I don't know if I can't even remember the prompts now. I know Mary Barton's a kind of a coming of age. That was one. And that disability, there's a disability. I didn't read any short stories. That was the prompt that I didn't do. So that was Victober. And then I also started reading. At first, I was reading it on my Kindle, Pickwick Papers. I am not doing Katie at Books and Things 2.5-year long Dickens read along, because I do not have the stamina for that. I know I don't. But I have been wanting to read the Pickwick Papers. I started to read it. I wasn't getting any traction, so I switched to audio. Oh, I forgot to look up the guy's name. I am enjoying it so much more on audio. I thought it was kind of funny when I was reading it, but on audio, the guy who's doing the reading is absolutely wonderful. He does all the voices, and he totally gets all the humor, and it's really quite enjoyable as an audio. So, I wish I could remember. I'll look it up and I'll put it in the description who the narrator is, because he's really good. So I've been listening to Pickwick Papers in the car as I drive around, and it's wonderful. I'm really enjoying it. And then there were 2 other books that I meant to get to in October, and I just was over ambitious. I was going to read this for Halloween, because I want to read some Shirley Jackson. I've read her book she wrote 2 memoirs about raising her kids. And I read The Life Among the Savages, and it was a hoot. And then, of course, I've read her her short story, The Lottery, and I might have read other things by her. So I do like her writing style, or at least what I remember. I enjoyed it. So I might save this for next October. I don't know. I want to read it eventually. And I never got to my Agatha Christie. I wanted to collect all the marbles and read them all, and I didn't get to it. Now, I have recently read this, like in the last couple of years, so it would have been a reread. And I just saw the Joan Hickson miniseries a few weeks ago, actually. I just by chance watched it while my husband was out one evening, and I just sat up and watched that. So yeah, and so now this month it's The Body in the Library, and I'm having trouble finding a copy in this new edition. I was looking on Amazon and they only have the old one. They didn't have the new one. So I don't know where people are picking that up. If you know, let me know. Because I wanted to collect this new edition of all the marbles. So, and hopefully I'll get to it this November. But I have also actually recently read The Body in the Library. So maybe that'll be okay if I don't get to it this November. But I think I should. So, oh, and the other thing I read in October, which wasn't part of Victober, was Down and Out in Paris and London. And I never did get to the discussion on that. But that was a very interesting read. I'm glad I read it. It was interesting. I already reviewed that, so I'm not going to go into that. And let's see, just a couple of other things. I'm still working my way through City of God, and I am behind. I'm still behind. So I'm hoping that I will finish chapter 18 here. I've got 40 pages more this week. So I can go on to chapter 19. I'm really going to have to figure out how I'm going to fit that in. I went away this weekend for my 34th wedding anniversary, went to Gettysburg. I didn't read it at all over the weekend, but I did buy this book because this is a nice, gentle retelling of the Battle of Gettysburg. And I figured a grandchild might need this one day. And it's just at the level where I can understand what was going on. But we enjoyed driving around and looking at all the sites. And we had an audio tour. And it didn't always quite line up with where we were. But it was pretty informative. So I feel like I used to go to school in that area. And I've been to that battleground, a couple of times at least, maybe more. Long time ago, and I've really forgotten about it. And they've changed things. In Gettysburg, they used to have a wax museum. It's not there anymore. And they used to have a big tower you could go up, and they don't have that there anymore either. And I'm continuing to read this book, Shadrach, to the 7-year-old grandson, and we are enjoying it. We're this far. Really enjoying it. Really like this author for children's books. Let's see, what else am I doing? I said I was doing Pickwick Papers. Oh, and I started reading Walden. It took me a little bit to get into it, but now I am into it and I'm enjoying it. I might just take my time reading it, though. And then I'm also reading on my Kindle, and I don't like to have 2 different books going at the same time on my Kindle, but I do right now because Halloween... It started with COVID. When I had COVID, I kept eating these throat lozenges, and they were all sugary. And I have a terrible time with sugar. It really affects my health, but I can easily be addicted to it. So I have to really, really steer clear of it a lot. And that just did something to me. And then Halloween. And I'm just, so I got this, I downloaded this book on a 40-day sugar fast. But I'm going to talk about that in another video because I'm going to do a whole thing, I think, on fasting from sugar. So I think those are all the books. Did I forget anything? I don't think so. So it was a pretty good month for me. I enjoyed it, and I'm happy to be into nonfiction November. So many people don't seem to like November. They just want to go right into Christmas, and I don't. I want Christmas to be Christmas, and I want to enjoy my November. I mean, it's because my wedding anniversary is in November and then Thanksgiving, and I really like Thanksgiving. And I really enjoy nonfiction November, so there's that. I want my November. Don't take my November away from me. Don't rush me into Christmas. Anyway, I'm Catholic. I do Advent before Christmas, so I want November, I want Advent, and then I'm going to do Christmas. And everybody else in the world is so darn pushy. Anyway, I'm almost done with the first book of this, so that's probably in the next video will be a review of this. So funny, just laugh out loud funny, so well written, just beautiful descriptions. Really, really enjoying this a lot. So that's my first nonfiction, and then we'll see where we go from there. All right, I'm going to stop talking. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great nonfiction November, or if you're not doing nonfiction November, whatever you are doing, I hope you enjoy your November, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.